friends.
Yes, because you see, one day in the dining room, there was only one seat left, and it was across from this Frenchman who, in fact, had met Nolini in 1975. And Nolini had said to him at that time, "You will come back." And when he came back, that was when we met. And we both thought at the time that we would move to Orville. And, and for several practical reasons, that didn't happen. And my first time in Orville was a lot of fun because Oral Culture had asked me to help her carry samadhi compost to the Matrimandir. You know, I thought, well, how heavy can flower petals be? But in fact, she had already converted it into earth. So we walked from the aspiration road all the way to the Matrimandir on Mother's birthday in the hot sun, carrying kilos of samadhi compost. Then after that, Maurice and I we worked on several concretings at the Matrimandir.
Well, I wanted to ask you a bit
Yeah.
about your experiences in Oroville.
Mhm.
Were you there did you go back and forth from the ashram?
That's a good question. You know, Jyoti Priya had said, because when I came to the ashram in 79, there had been some problems. And Jyoti Priya was always very categorical. When people ask you if you're for the ashram or for Oroville, you say, "I am for the mother." And so, as you are, and so I was going back and forth, working a little with kids at the Centerfield School. And that was okay until it was the end of April, cycling out 3 times a week to Oroville. And the end of April, it was so hot. So one time, I just got off my cycle and I said, "Okay, tell me what to do. Where should I be?" And I waited for about 25 minutes until my body moved me. I got on my cycle and I came back to the ashram. And in the end, I'm very glad I did, because you are a very strong person and you were able to survive many of those difficult years in Oroville. But I think for myself...
Survive is the right word.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the Orvillians, including women, had shaved their heads. I remember seeing a whole group of them in front of the ashram post office. So I went back and forth, but I really stayed in the ashram, and at that point I realized that that was the right thing for me, because if I had gone to Oroville, I would have been, and I love Oroville, and I admire all the people, and particularly the pioneers. They're so strong, so full of faith.
Well, you're also doing a lot for Oroville.
Yeah, now I am.
We have to get into that a little bit also.
Yeah.
So you moved to France.
Moved to France. In Paris, there still is the center that was started by the mother's son, André Morisset.
Yes.
And so I went to satsangs there. And for example, Kiran Vyas had a center there, and Champacloud came. There's a nice photo of us with Champacloud. And what can I say? But I was basically concentrating on practical things. Although the small means I had, I always sent money for the Matrimandir. Always. And then about 4 years ago, I started having more of an availability to work. And so I started getting inspirations, like, for example, I read that the ambulance for Oroville was not functional.
Oh, yes.
And I thought that was absolutely unacceptable. And so I started speaking at AVI meetings about how we had to collect money for the ambulance. And it seems that once I started talking and the energy level came up, the money came in, and very quickly they got the ambulance. Okay. The year after that, I read
The health center?
The health center
Yes.
was absolutely stuck. They had run
Yes.
out of funds and was sitting there like a horrible dead skeleton. And I said, "That's not possible. We can't accept this." And so with Julian, I organized a fundraiser between AVI France and AVI USA. And we raised quite a bit of money. And just then, the energy factor started working, and a house that they'd been trying to sell in Holland
Oh,
was
yes.
sold. They'd been waiting for years, nothing was happening. But just coincidentally, at the same time that we raised the energy and raised some money, the whole situation changed. The house was sold, and with the money, they were able to finish the first phase of the new Integral Health Center and finish the Unity Pavilion. So I started saying, well, maybe these things are energy things. And then last September, I read Carol's article in Orville Today about a danger to the Matrimandir coming from speculators.
Land speculators, yes.
That there are still, people don't think about it, everybody thinks the job is done, right? But there are pockets of earth not far from the Matrimandir, not in the direct gardens around the Matrimandir, but very close by, that are targets, potential victims of speculators' developments. And so once again, I had that feeling, this is unacceptable. We cannot permit this. And I kept on feeling this. I have to do something. I have to do something. And then the idea came to me came through me, Acres for Orville. And so I contacted Arya Deep at Lands for Orville Unified, who's been working for so many years, went through so many land campaigns, but everybody had sort of given up hope a little bit. Another land campaign, the price of land is so high, what could we really do? Orville already has so much land that they can't even protect. What's the point of a new campaign? Maybe all kinds of things. There was so much negativity. But as I had had the proof from the ambulance and the health center that I was getting an indication, because for many years I had been directly guided by Maha Saraswathi. I went through 27 years of very difficult and demanding work life, where so many times I felt from my own personal force I was incapable of doing it all. And there was always Saraswati helping me, working things out, organizing things. So from that very rational, intellectual, doubting person who would never be a dupe, I understood that Saraswati was there. And so I called Aryadeep, and we organized Acres for Orville. And I'm very happy to say that we received a letter from an old Orvillian who said that we have restored faith, joy, and trust in the process of acquiring land for Orville. And after 6 months, we have a bit of money. I'm not allowed to say how much, so it doesn't feed any greed somewhere for anybody who might hear. But the other thing that I feel very strongly about, which has come step by step, is that it's not only, it's an energy action, getting everybody enthused again, creating a web of protection, points of light around the Matrimandir. And I'm not the only person who's had this vision of a protective web of points of light. Every donation, 10 euros, $5, whatever. People have given much more, myself included, but other people have given much, much more. But that's not the point. The point is everybody's intention and aspiration to protect the consecrated atmosphere of the Matrimandir. And so we have started to have this fabulous, and again, Narad, thank you for speaking at the retreat for 2 years consecutively. You spoke on behalf of the Integral Health Center. I asked you, and you immediately, enthusiastically said yes. And the same thing for Acres for Oroville. You spoke in such a way that inspired people to really come and contribute and be part of it. And but the thing that's been most wonderful has been Ashramites, Orovillians, devotees, friends of Orville, everybody beginning to come together. And the theme that keeps on coming to me is uniting the family. Uniting the family, everybody coming together.
You were doing all of this work in France?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your home in
You've
France,
been
which
there.
touched me so deeply.
Well, my husband Maurice is a very capable person in so many ways, intellectually and physically capable. And we found this property of, now we acquired a little bit more. It's 28 acres of forest land that had been abandoned for about 20 years, with an old ruin of a house that's over 300 years old right in the middle of it. So he's done so much work, and I have too. I've dedicated it in my heart to the mother. And there is a certain point when you enter the property where you feel another vibration. You have said that. And, I have to say one other thing, which is really backtracking. Perhaps the fourth year I was in France, I had a very serious health crisis where, for some reason, the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was the 10th doctor who saved my life. I went through a period of almost 2 months where I went from doctor to doctor, and they said things that were absurd, and I kept on giving them the correct diagnosis, but because I didn't speak French well, they didn't believe me, or because I was a patient. In any case, we finally get to the point where I had peritonitis, extremely high fever. In the hospital, it's Sunday night. Unbelievably, the doctor went home because it was Sunday night and just packed me in ice and said, well, we'll operate tomorrow morning. So I said, okay, Mother, I've tried my best. It seems nobody is going to save me, so be it. And it was the most beautiful night of my life, total surrender. Total surrender is really beautiful. And so I spent the night reading Savitri. And I was at that point at the Book of Fate where Narad says to the king, your fate is not what happens to you, it's what you choose, offering your feelings and everything else on the sacred fire. Yeah. And Narad said, but only for the good can the secret will act.
Only for good.
That's right.
The secret will can act.
And then, so I had a beautiful night. It was the last night of my life. I was convinced it was fabulous. And then, in the end, the next morning, they saved my life. But the nurse said it was the last second. So it was very, very fabulous, and I'm very grateful, and I learned a lot from the whole experience. And I'm not going to talk for too long, but again, I wanted to give my own personal testimony again because I was a very unlikely candidate, I thought. Now, maybe I had previous lives that prepared me, because it's true, I never saw the mother in her physical body. It's true that the first time I saw her photo in the meditation hall, I said in my heart, oh, I'm so happy to find you again. Again. So, and one time I was in the mother's room, I wrote a poem called Light. Light, 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 joyous light, dancing light, 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 light. So, okay, so here's the end of my testimony. I was the least likely person. I was a very intellectual girl. I had no sense of any type of spiritual destiny or role or anything. But once I read the mother's meditations, I decided I didn't want to be a valueless cipher. I wanted to be even a small paving stone on her road. I'm very happy to be a small paving stone. And one time, my last dream in Golconda, I had a dream where I swallowed a frog. And so I looked under Sri Aurobindo's significances for what is a frog. And the meaning he gave was modest usefulness. So that's my byword, modest usefulness. I'm devoted to Saraswathi. And I want to be a little paving stone on their road. So in that context, I'd just like to say that I've had more and more the experience of feeling no limits to my body, no separation between myself and other people. If I want to put up a barrier, I'm incapable of doing that now. I used to do that when I was working. I had lots of clients who came in with stress, and I would, kind of...
Yes.
I can't do that anymore. It's impossible. And I know other people at the ashram have told me they've been having the same experience. And the last thing is, in the past 3 years, I had several experiences that were very painful. Silly thing, I sprained my ankle, or bitten by a dog in Oroville. The dog bit 11 people the same day, so I had to have the rabies treatment. I don't know if he was rabid, but he was not well because he just attacked all these people. And then I was finally bitten by a tick on my head, and I had an enormous reaction of Lyme's disease.
Really?
Yeah. Maurice can testify. I looked like a pumpkin that was ready to explode. But the point of saying this is that in every case I could have avoided it because I received the specific inner indication: do not walk here, walk there. Don't do this now, do it later. Don't sit here. Cancel your plan every single time. And every single time my logical mind said, oh, but no, it's more logical to do this first, or I'll just finish this and then I'll do that after. But I was told every single time. I could have avoided every one of those things if I had listened. So now I listen. I know the voice is true. I went through a whole process of how do I know if it's a true indication or some fabrication of my mind. I'm saying this for, not because I'm anything, but for the record of transformation. And so I have found for myself that when you hear intimations, like Mother said, and they sometimes even come as words, and sometimes it might even sound like a voice, but if the center of energy is coming from here, it's your mind playing games and imagining. If the center of energy is from here, then you're being guided. And so now I listen to that voice immediately, even if it makes no sense. I don't care about my logic. And this is the last thing, is that I'm finally getting out of my logical mind, passing over to the other side. Because that voice, the logic says, I know this, that, but that voice sees the future. That guidance sees not just this one thing that you've decided to do, but sees the whole picture, the other things that are there. And so I'm extremely grateful for all of that. And I just have one wish, which is that I can go as far as I can in terms of surrender.
Does Mother guide you now?
Yeah.
You feel her guidance?
I don't, well, I imagine it's her. It's just this, I have faith that it's her.
Yes.
I'm no longer a dupe. I'm not afraid of being a dupe. I'm attentive.
Yes.
I'm attentive to make sure that I'm not adding something in based on fear, desire, ambition, wishes. All those things falsify the thing. But I learned, like the time when I was told not to go to Orville, is that if you can just be clear, then you can get the guidance, right?
Yes.
But if you're busy thinking and deciding, and I want to do this, it's much easier when you're a little older. I mean, I look at things now. I've been involved with the yoga now for 77 to now, so what, that's 37 years, something like that. So it's certainly a lot easier with a lot of experiences under your belt and more maturity. I'm not a kid anymore.
And the divine love
Divine love.
is ever present.
Ever present. You remember the divine love tree I planted
Yes.
behind our house. So I'm extremely grateful, and I'm extremely grateful to all the people who have taught or inspired. I was so lucky to be at the ashram in the early 80s, to Sinolini Pujalal, who wrote a Sanskrit sloka with Mandakini in it, Udar, who chanted it for me, Millie D, Mona, seeing Vasudha Ben, Mother's Little Smile with her beautiful smile. So many other people. Aurobindo Basu, who was a great, great, great friend, because two things about him. First of all, his mind was, as you know better than anybody, both sharp and surrendered. He said that things just came through him.
Yeah.
And when I came back from the ashram, I went to the Swami Muktananda Center in LA, and Arindam had been invited to speak on Kashmiri Shaivism. And there were a lot of people, and he spoke, just intelligence, brilliance flowing out of him. And then suddenly, he stopped. Suddenly, it was the end. He just stopped, and he sat like this, and there was this dead silence, and everybody was stunned, but it was perfect, and it moved everyone so much. It was such an extraordinary experience.
He told me once, he showed me the letter, and he said, "Mother, it seems that more and more I am using words that are Sri Aurobindo's."
Mm-hmm.
And Mother wrote back, "The more you surrender to him, the more he will speak through you."
Yes, so beautiful. And she basically, Sri Aurobindo basically said that very generally for everybody in the first chapter of the Mother. The more the conscious process, more you are conscious of the process, the more the conscious process works through you.
Yes.
And just on that, when Jyoti Priya died, Arindam was here, and he invited Barbie and Barbara and me and other people to meditate for Jyoti. I remember I was so pleased. He said, "We're all yogis here, let's just meditate." And then since he knew that I had been writing in Los Angeles, he asked me to write Jyoti Priya's biography. In fact, it was supposed to be a very short piece for Mother India, but when Trudy sent all the documents from the East-West Center and I discovered Jyoti's life, it became 24 pages in Mother India in 1980.
And the connection with Arindam again.
The connection with Arindam again.
Yes.
And that he was the link of her. And today, so the next step is that Ani asked me to condense the articles for Wikipedia, which has been done, but leading to the next step, which is our future collaboration on a book about Jyoti Priya. Yes? You who knew her so well and did so much with her. But today I went to the archives and I saw her first letters that she wrote to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Yes, and where she described her experience and smelling jasmine in the middle of stinky Benares. Yes, that was very, very moving.
And Mother's answers also?
No.
This is in this Rue Suffren.
It's in the archives.
There. Or here. Here. Oh, wonderful.
So the original letters are there, but what we can't locate, which is making me a little upset, were the letters she wrote to Mother and Sri Aurobindo after 1950. And she wrote about all her activities, starting the East-West Center and everything. But then, 1956, get to the letters, 1956. Early February, of course. The next letter was written March 8th, 1956. And we remember that the Mother said very few people in the world were aware when the supramental descent happened. Amal had said that Mother appeared to him in the train, and later he said to her, "Why are you here?" And she said, "Remember, I promised you I would come to you when it happened." And so there's Jyoti Priya's letter, March 8th, 1956. Okay, we're talking about a week after the supramental descent. And looking through the letter she wrote voluminously, right? I get to loving pranams, Jyoti Priya, nothing. But then, P.S. Mother, in recent days I've become aware of a new universe with a new vibration and a new light. Yeah.
I think Mother said only two people in the ashram and 3 outside.
Yeah.
And Aravinda was outside at that time. He told me that he had experienced it, yes.
Really? That I didn't know.
It wasn't perfectly clear, but he knew something tremendous had happened. So now we have Jyoti Priya,
Amal,
and
but
Aravinda.
here, I don't know who it was here.
Don't know who. Oh, Vidyut's grandfather, I think. Or Vidyut's father, maybe. I don't know the other one.
Yeah, I don't know.
This has been so wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity,
Thank you.
for the universal record, and great
Well,
gratitude to everybody.
I take it as a blessing.
And thank you for all your inspiration, all the wonderful things you've done, Narad. You've
Thank
inspired and helped many people, and so thank you.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Can you tell us how you feel in the ashram now?
How I feel in the ashram. It's I still feel a little outside because I don't come often, and Mandakini knows nearly everybody. And myself, I have the impression to know some people, but I don't. I don't care to know only some people, but just a few who are people I have good contacts. So do I feel? It's true that I don't feel yet in. My path, my way is difficult, hard.
Yes, well,
Hard to progress. I don't know, it's progress, hard to get in completely.
I've often... sorry.
And as Orville with Oroville, it's also the same thing. Because sometimes I thought, I thought to come to Oroville.
to live in Oroville?
To live in Oroville in the 80s. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, no, I won't be able to. With my temperament, I won't be able to do it because all this decision taking so long, people being against this, against that, arguing for the smallest thing, and I couldn't do it. And now sometimes I still see this kind of way of being in Oroville, but it's unavoidable because there is no boss, there is no chief, there is no... So when we put human being together, that's always what happens.
And all types had to come to Oroville to be worked out. So it's a crucible.
But I understand, so there is... people need faith to stay like that in spite of this the disappointment sometimes. And so. It needs faith, and I'm not sure I would be able to really be there every day and committed my whole life in it, Oh yes, I can come a few weeks to visit, few weeks, work a little, help a little, but to commit all my life. And I see some people who apparently have done it, and they still seem serene. Some people, but I see.
Yes, it's true.
I admire that.
Yes.
I admire that, and I don't think maybe if I was in it I would become like that. I don't know, but I don't think I would be able to do it. So I decided one moment, no, my life isn't there. Sometimes I regret a little because I feel far now. But
you come back and forth,
yeah.
as do I.
Because I'm still interested in Oroville, what's the development, what's going to happen. But I won't be living anymore when it happens. But when I see what Mandakini has done, that's action,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And
Shakti.
I see so many, but at the same time I say, but why this question of ground has it taken so long to be able to go to the people understanding that it's absolutely necessary that the ground is secured first, not first completely, but very soon.
In 1971, we had two opposing views, and I was on the side of getting the land immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
You were right.
So I went to Monsieur André, and I said, could you take this letter to Mother about purchasing the land? He actually came out to Oroville and read Mother's answer. Buy the land now. You do not know the power of greed.
Yeah, she had seen the thing.
She
So
saw
why
it.
people didn't do it?
Yeah, she saw it.
Because incapable of deciding, somebody has an idea, the other one say no, we should. So does it need a method to take decision? There are methods, but at the final, who decides? So if it has to be the whole unanimity, it's impossible. There will be always people against.
Always. But
you know very well the problem because you had also you accomplished many
things
as far as I know.
But eventually, the truth and the good prevail.
That's right.
And the work that she has done, maybe it took this much time for it to be able to flower.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
See.
So
But there's
it
a new hope now. The new land
Yes.
board is fabulous. I
Yes.
love them. They're
Yes.
wonderful. There's a new energy. The new working committee is fabulous. They were chosen by the community process. What a progress. And if I could just add, I mean, you're an Orville pioneer, but I really feel like everybody's finally growing up a little. You know, in the beginning, a lot of people were there to follow their way of life, and they didn't feel really like they were building something. They were building something for the mother in Shobando and for the earth and our evolution. And now people are beginning to see it's bigger than just how I want to live my life. Don't you see that? Huh?
Yes.
And I see there are many valuable and intelligent people in the world.
Yes.
Many. So this apparent inefficiency is, sometimes it makes kind of it's unacceptable. But you have to accept it as reality. But I know if I was getting in Oroville, I wouldn't have now. I wouldn't have the patience. I say, well, it has to. So, with my temperament, I don't have his ability to be nice, kind, myself.
Encouraging, patient.
It can be brutal. It can be, So.
But I have often thought that Mother would have loved him if she'd met him, because he has such a requirement for honesty and perfection, and plus a lot of energy. And I think she would have really loved that in you, really.
Well, I'll share what she wrote to me once. Go on boldly, following your way with joy and confidence, taking great care of one thing only, never to forget the divine.
Oh, that's wonderful.
There we are.
Oh, that's wonderful.
All right. Okay, now, yeah.